Welcome back. Once again, we are going to continue the same topic, that is Indian English poetry. As I told you, pre-independence poets, there are some poets, Manmohan Ghosh, then there is Aurobindo, who is claimed as the best poet who wrote poetry in English. He has written vast body of poetry in English. And then he is a very greatest, and among Sarojini Naidu and other poets, Sarojini Naidu is a very popular poet in that particular period. She had a mastery of rhyme meter in the poetry, and she was a versatile poet. She draws on the rich traditions of several Indian languages, regions and religions. Her images are stylized and sophisticated, not naive or simplistic. Then comes Rabindranath Tagore, who comes in the period 1861 to 1941. First half century of the 20th century, he wrote very notable poems. His Gitanjali won for him Nobel Prize for Literature. And then he translated several poems in English. And that is why his fame spread over the world. He was a short story writer, critic, musician, painter, educationist. So, Rabindranath Tagore's poetry is very noteworthy in the pre-independence period. Then there is Anand Acharya, Puran Singh, then there is Harindranath Chattopadhyay. So, these poets are also prominent in the pre-independence period, and they wrote a various or variety of poems in that particular era. Now, what are the post-independence poets? After 1940, that there was a different tone got shifted in Indian English poetry. It was due to the independence and free expression of the thought due to the independence. So, they wrote a very different kind of poetry. A new generation came into existence from 1950 to 1960, and these poets betrayed by its elders. It was impatient for change and fed up with the platitudes of the past. The first characteristic of the modernist poetry was a rejection of the past. पहिलं आधुनिक कवींचं वैशिष्ट्य म्हणजे रिजेक्शन ऑफ द पास्ट, म्हणजे पूर्वीचं जे काही जुनं जे आहे ते त्याने संपूर्ण रिजेक्ट केलं. This was suggested in the title of Ezekiel's first book of poems, A Time to Change, which was published in 1952. Then they wanted a poetry which was without escapism, the flight of fancy, poetry written in a clear, hard, unsentimental voice and in everyday language. भाषा जी आहे ह्या काव्याची ही अतिशय साधी, स्पष्ट, नेहमीची, दररोज वापरली जाणारी, फॅन्सी पासून दूर, अतिशय स्पष्ट भाषेमध्ये. त्याच्यानंतर सेक्युलर म्यूज मध्ये त्यांनी बिलीव्ह केलेला आहे. सो द पोएट्स tried to represent hate, love, relationship with their surroundings. They believed that they were alienated from their society, and irony was the only way of expressing their ambivalence towards themselves and their world. Dom Morais chooses Babur as a persona to suggest his own sense of alienation from India. Theme of alienation is there. Then Jusawala finds himself filled with revulsion, pain upon approaching Santa Cruz Airport, Bombay. Kamala Das, the Sunshine Cat. So, the various kind of poetry was written. Then Parth Sarthi's Homecoming is loaded with self-criticism and loss. Then Daruwala's routine, the police officer cynically prepares himself for another riot. Then Chitre's speaker regards his father returning home with dispassionate and ironic detachment. Kolatkar turns the whole idea of traditional pilgrimage inside out in Jejuri. So every situation of India is observed and it is expressed, presented in the poetry. On the other hand, there are some other modernist poets like Shahid Surawardi, who was quite aware of not just the tension between his mother tongue and his language of expression. So that is also another point. The conflict between mother tongue and English language. So such a kind of modernist sensibility was there in Indian poetry. Jusawala, Das, Mehrotra, Ramanujan, then Patel, Nandi, they are acknowledged as the protagonists of the movement. Then there is C. Narasimha of the literary criterion, who started as a radical modernist, but have now mellowed into upholders of Indian traditions in literature and criticism. So, within the high modernists, essentially two traditions can be posted, the clear and the obscure, conversational and esoteric. So these are two traditions which came into existence after independence. Mehrotra, Kolatkar, Mahapatra, these are the poets who wrote on the obscure and esoteric poetry. Then there is a parody, pastiche, collage, intertextuality and literary cannibalism of varying degrees. Shahid Ali, Salim Pirandia, then Manohar Sethi, Vikram Seth, Imtiaz Dharkar. These are other poets. They have a very noteworthy talent. Then What are the major themes of this Indian English poetry? You can see after independence there was a very different trend came into existence. There was political ferment and turmoil and urge of the nationalist Indian to acquire a distinct national identity to avoid being browbeaten by the imperialist forces. So they wrote freely, they wrote about India, Indian problems, Indian situation. Now what are the themes of Indian English poetry? The themes shows for the Indian English poetry was the Indian culture, then nationality, then there was the childhood of the poets, and their experiences in their lives. So clear Indianness is found in their poetry. म्हणजे भारतीयपणा जो आहे तो त्यांच्या काव्यामध्ये मोठ्या प्रमाणामध्ये दिसून येतो. पोस्ट इंडिपेंडन्स पोएट्री मध्ये देखील तेच आपल्याला दिसून येतं. इंडियननेस, त्याच्यानंतर चाइल्डहुड मेमरीज असतील, देन देयर विल बी वेस्टर्नाइज्ड लाईफस्टाईल इज देअर. पाश्चिमात्य जीवनशैलीचं अनुकरण देखील या पिरियड मध्ये झालेलं दिसून येतं. कल्चर असेल, ईस्ट अँड वेस्ट एन्काउंटर असेल, ह्या देखील गोष्टी त्याच्यामध्ये आपल्याला दिसून येत आहेत. सो द पोएट्स हू राईट इन इंग्लिश वेर बॉर्न से 20s and 30s this century. On growing up, they have been part of independent India. They are witness to the part of socio-economical political changes जे आहेत त्याचे ते सर्व कवी हे साक्षीदार असलेले दिसत आहेत. अरुण कोलटकर जेजुरी इज अ एक्झाम्पल इन पॉइंट. आता मॉडर्निझम आहे, रिलीजन आहे, देन देर इज अ डिस्पेअर आहे, निराशा आहे, सरकॅझम, तर ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टीचा उल्लेख ह्या काव्यामध्ये दिसून येतो. So in this way you can see Indian English poetry began far back before independence, and after independence it has cultural assimilation, then English education you find, Indian befriended English, making it a language of their intellectual as well as emotional makeup. They tried to write in English like the important poets Tagore, Dutt, then Aurobindo family. The themes are nationalism, nature, Indian culture, love, etc. Post-independence brought in a dawn of a new era of disillusionment and identity crisis. Identity crisis चा देखील प्रश्न या ठिकाणी या काव्यामध्ये उपस्थित झालेला आहे. A new elite middle class had come into existence. Middle class चा उदय झालेला आहे. Then quest for identity as Indianness and as humans. Diaspora and culturally rootedness had its own problems. These themes give birth to new techniques and experimentation in the modern poetry. There is a confessional mode of poetry. So the modern Indian poets reflect the contemporary society and life. So it can be called an India in a miniature form. So it is all about modern Indian English poetry, its features and other things. Here we are concluding this topic. Thank you.